Today, we delve into the tragic incident involving Flight Lamia 2933, which claimed the lives of the Chapecoense football team. This narrative will focus on the technical aspects of the crash, providing a comprehensive understanding of what transpired. The aircraft in question was an Avro 146-85, registered as CP-2933 in Bolivia. It was chartered to transport the Chapecoense team from Sao Paulo, Brazil, to Rio Negro, Colombia, for an important match. Initially scheduled to depart on November 28th, the flight was delayed due to regulatory issues. The Bolivian Aviation Authority, ANAC, rightfully denied the flight authorization because international regulations prohibit charter flights from utilizing aircraft not registered in either the departure or destination country. As a result, the team had to first travel to Bolivia before continuing on to Colombia. After arriving at Santa Cruz, Bolivia, the team faced further delays, landing at approximately 3:45 p.m. local time. Meanwhile, the Lamia aircraft had flown from Cochabamba to pick them up. At 3:10 p.m., the flight dispatcher filed a flight plan with air traffic control, intending to take off at 5 p.m. However, the dispatcher failed to take into account the flight time and fuel requirements, which was a crucial oversight. The flight departed at 5:18 p.m., climbing to 28,000 feet, where it maintained altitude for an hour before ascending to its cruising altitude of 30,000 feet at 7:14 p.m. By 7:42 p.m., the cockpit voice recorder captured pilots discussing a diversion to Bogota for fuel. However, they failed to communicate this change to air traffic control, who subsequently cleared them directly to Rio Negro. At 7:30 p.m., the two pilots began discussing fuel levels, calculating whether they could reach their destination without refueling. This practice is highly discouraged in commercial aviation, where safety protocols dictate that fuel reserves should account for potential diversions. Their decision to proceed without a safety buffer was a critical misjudgment. By 7:50 p.m., after receiving clearance to navigate to several waypoints, the pilots had committed to skipping a refueling stop in Bogota. This decision further solidified the chain of errors leading to the impending disaster. At 8:15 p.m., the cockpit voice recorder ceased functioning, a recurring issue that had plagued the aircraft for days. However, the flight data recorder remained operational, capturing essential communications between the aircraft and air traffic control. Shortly before the voice recorder failed, a passenger entered the cockpit for photos with the crew, a moment that would later be scrutinized in the investigation. As the flight continued, at 9:15 p.m., a warning light indicating low fuel illuminated in the cockpit. The aircraft was now 333 kilometers from Rio Negro, with only 40 minutes of fuel remaining. Despite this alarming signal, the pilots chose to continue toward Gamelin, a waypoint critical for their approach to landing. Over the next 29 minutes, they flew with the warning light active, ignoring the need for immediate action. Financial troubles within the Lamia company likely influenced the pilot's decision to avoid a costly refueling stop. The captain, who also owned the airline, had previously completed flights with inadequate fuel levels without consequence, leading him to underestimate the current situation. As they reached Gamelin, air traffic control instructed them to hold for a landing priority from another aircraft. The appropriate course of action would have been to declare an emergency due to low fuel. Instead, they accepted the wait, further compounding the impending crisis. At 9:52 p.m., the third engine failed due to fuel exhaustion, followed shortly by the fourth. In a situation where any competent commander would have alerted the crew and passengers to prepare for an emergency landing, the Lamia pilot remained silent. Investigators later concluded that had the crew announced the emergency, the chances of survival for the passengers, many of whom were asleep, would have increased significantly. Some may wonder why the Lamia did not glide safely to the airport, despite engine failure. The answer lies in their configuration. The flaps and landing gear were deployed, creating excessive drag and drastically reducing glide distance. By 9:55 p.m., the second engine failed, followed by the first just 40 seconds later. Now, the aircraft was gliding, albeit far from an optimal configuration. The cabin was filled with a haunting silence, disrupted only by the frantic voices of the pilots seeking guidance from air traffic control. At this moment, they were still 14 kilometers from the airport, with the potential to reach it if not for the landing gear and flaps. With just seconds to impact, the pilots communicated their position but failed to declare an emergency, a critical oversight. Ultimately, the aircraft collided with a mountain, resulting in the loss of 71 lives, with only 6 survivors. Investigations revealed numerous opportunities to avert the disaster. Had the pilots declared a fuel emergency earlier, they could have flown directly to the airport. Documentation revealed recurring issues with crew resource management and communication deficiencies within the cockpit, highlighting the need for better coordination. The morning after the crash, I received a call from a reporter informing me of the tragedy. It is a harsh reality that aviation accidents rarely occur without a combination of factors. In the case of Lamia, the pilot's dual role as owner and captain created an environment ripe for misjudgment. The situation surrounding the Lamia airline was dire. Following the prohibition of the flight by ANAC, they scrambled to arrange last-minute logistics. The pilots were inadequately prepared, and, above all, they violated fundamental aviation safety protocols even before departing from Santa Cruz. This tragedy was not merely an accident. It was a clear breach of all safety regulations. In aviation, there is no room for risk-taking or complacency. The security measures I often emphasize come from a commitment to doing things correctly and adhering to established procedures. To the young professionals aspiring to work in aviation, this lesson is crucial. Always do what is right. Never take unnecessary risks. Cutting corners only increases the likelihood of accidents. I hope you now have a clear understanding of what transpired with the Lamia 2933 incident and the importance of following protocols in any flight operation. If you found this video informative, please share it. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to our next journey together.